The Lems Boulder boot has been in my rotation of boots since before I even started this channel. You can see how worn out these are because they are super comfortable. They have a nice wide toe box. They're zero drop. They're all under 200 bucks and they're up there with the most comfortable boots that you can buy because of that wide toe box and how comfortable they are. And like if you look at the original one, it's literally just leather around your foot and foam underneath your foot. And it makes them crazy comfortable. And since the initial purchasing of these that I did back in like 2016, we've since cut all the version of them in half, including the leather pair, the Summit boot that's a little bit more rugged and trail ready. And now they came out with the grip version, which is made to grip a little bit better with water, ice, and all sorts of conditions. It's waterproof, and it's this evolution of one of my favorite boots, going from my kick around shop boot that's mostly just for comfort up to what seems to be a more performance-based a wide toe box, zero drop Lems Boulder boot. So we're gonna cut this thing in half, run it through our test to really see what the differences are across these three boots, why you might want one versus the other, which is the best for which application, and what they've done to this new grip boot that makes it different than the other two boots. And thanks to Lems for sending us this boot and sponsoring this video. So now, what are these boots? Well, the brand is Lems. The style is Boulder boot grip, waterproof. They weigh 1 pound even. They retail for $180. The Summits that we're comparing them to are $185, and the regular Boulder boots are $135 for the nylon side or the canvas side and $160 for the full leather. And all of them, I believe, are made in China. And the way that Lems positions this boot is this version of the traditional waterproof Boulder boot is made with all your favorite features like a wide toe box and zero drop platform, but now featuring a new rugged ultra grippy outsole. So let's compare the leathers first. And the way we'll do this is do the Boulder, then the Summit, and then the grip last. So the Boulder boot has a pretty decent leather. It has a heavy pigmented finish, which is a thin layer of paint on top, which gives it its really consistent, even finish, but also hides some of the more natural features that you see in this other leather in the other two boots. It's 1.8 millimeters to 2 millimeters thick. It does have the grain in it, and it seems to be a fairly dependable and durable leather. The only thing I don't like is that after some wear and some time, you wear off that top coat and it looks worse than if it didn't have that top coat of pigment on top. Then if you look at the Summit boot, this is their oil leather that's 2 to 2.5 millimeters thick. And this is technically like a waxed nubuck where they buff the top surface of the leather, like smooth grain pattern, laid those fibers back down with a heavy layer of wax, and they infuse tons of oil into this leather that allows it to repel water a little bit more than just a natural leather that doesn't have a ton of oil in it. It also is a fairly self-conditioning leather because it's so saturated, and it hides scratches and flaws really easily because all you gotta do is buff that top layer of the grain and it kind of disappears. And then if you look at the new grip boot, it looks like it's the exact same leather as the Summit boot. It's going to be a little bit better for outdoors. It doesn't wear quite as much with that top layer of pigment on top in the Boulder boots, but all three of them are in that 2 millimeter thickness range, have the grain. But if I had to choose which one I think was better, I would say this more oil tanned leather is better than the pigmented leather. The next difference between all three of these boots is the Boulder and the Summit have all eyelets, whereas this new grip boot has 2 speed hooks, which I really like because I hate untying my boots every single time. This allows you to quickly tie them up without untying that top knot. The mock toe stitch is different on a few of them because the Boulder boot has this classic mock toe stitch where it's 2 pieces. The Summit has it just overlapped, almost like a sneaker, and then the new grip boot is more like the original Boulder boot where it looks like a traditional mock toe. What about waterproofness? The Boulder boot is not waterproof and also has a pretty low gusseted tongue, so I would stay away from water in these. The Summit boot is gusseted up to the 3rd from the top eyelet and also has a waterproof membrane on the inside, and we put it in the waterproof test for 10 minutes. It was completely waterproof, and same results with the new grip boot, and still is waterproof up to 10 minutes from our test. It's the same leather, the same waterproof lining, a slightly different lining on the inside, and that lining is a difference to me between these three boots because the Boulder boot is literally just a flannel with a little bit of backing on it. The Summit boot is almost like a terry cloth, and because it's waterproof, it doesn't have that dedicated internal counter cover. And then the grip boots have more of what you'd see in a work boot. It's that moisture wicking lining that's that herringbone pattern on it. And so out of the three of them, you know, they're all fabric linings, but I would still say this new grip boot is probably the better out of the three. I just really like that synthetic internal counter cover that the original Boulder boot has. So once again, pretty clear this is made for a little bit more performance, more out on the trails to get wet, to wick your moisture. This is more purpose-built rather than the Boulder boot, which is a lot more of a universal. You could wear it in a lot of situations, but it doesn't really excel in true outdoor hiking and wear, because what we get to next is the outsole. Because if you remember on this Boulder boot, the midsole is the same component as the outsole. So what you have is just basically a midsole as your outsole. And they use a little bit harder of a foam. It's a 50 short A, but you can see it's not super thick. And even on my really old pair, you do wear it down pretty quickly, and you start to lose any squish that you actually had in the boot. And when it comes to hiking and being really outdoors, this just doesn't do the job well enough for anything above just trail walking. And so that's what I really liked about the Summit boot, is they upgraded it with a lot more luggy outsole, a lot more grip, while still giving you a mostly zero drop profile. But now you have that rubber, it's gonna be more durable, and it's gonna give you more grip while you're hiking. And then to probably the main feature of this boot that separates it from these other two, this grip boot is very similar to the Summit boot in having a rubber outsole, but you can see they've added a lot more relief cuts into this outsole. And what that does is when you're stepping on wet conditions or slippery stuff, that it almost works as like a gecko's foot, where each of these little perforations is gonna grip the rock or whatever you're standing on a little bit better by giving you more contact area and squishing more around the actual object you're standing on. And so that's why they call it the grip boot, is it's almost like a gecko's version of an outsole on the bottom of a boot. Pros and cons of that are it could wear out faster because you just have a lot more room for this to wear out because of that feature of that surface area. It has relief cuts through the sole construction, unlike the Summit where it's going to be a little bit more flexible. And so for wet conditions and anything that you want a lot of grip on, I would go with these. If you just want a good all-around outsole for all sorts of stuff, including hiking and having some grip, the Summit boot's more rugged and it's going to give you more grip over like actual rocky terrain. And then obviously the Boulder boot is more just for casual and light hiking and just like a little camp boot because it's just a foam outsole that doesn't have a ton of tread on it. And other than that, we don't really know how else it's structured on the inside. If it has more foam than the Summits, if it has less foam, is it a true zero drop? What's on the inside? I don't know. So let's cut them in half and compare them and give you why you might want one for what reason and why and which one I prefer most. So let's cut them in half. Okay, we got it chopped in half, so let's see what's inside. So very similar to the Summit boot, but it actually has less foam in the midsole than the Summit boot. It's a lot closer to the squish that you'd expect from the Boulder boot because of the amount of foam in there. You can also now see that there's a little pigskin lining around the collar of the boot, which is not in the Summit boot or the Boulder boot. And other than that, it's basically the exact same boot except for the outsole and those lining materials we talked about. So which of these boots is going to be the most comfortable across the board? I still think for general comfort, the regular Boulder boot is going to be the one. It's really light, it's really packable, you can throw it in your backpack, it's super wide, it's zero drop, so for me it's a nice recovery boot, it's a nice travel boot. I use it way more than I would expect for how much I love these like super heavy $700 boots. I have a black pair as well just to have a redundant pair. Which one is going to be your best overall outdoor boot? It's going to be the most dependable. I would say the Summit boot is. It's got a little bit more of an aggressive outsole. It has these little bumpers on the toe and the heel. It has a little bit more squish underneath your foot with the midsole compared to the other two. And you still have the waterproof and that oil leather. So I think this is the best overall outdoor boot. And then obviously which is best for really wintry conditions, slippery conditions. If you're wanting this boot and you're not even necessarily going to hike in it, but you just want a wide toe box waterproof boot for winter, this winter grip is going to give you a good amount of grip in the winter. You're never going to have like full on grip, but just the way that this spreads out and works like a little gecko's foot, it's going to give you more grip than the other two boots. And it's also going to be a little bit more ground fill underneath your foot compared to the Summit boot because of it has a little bit less foam. And so I think that's how I would use them. For if you're really getting in slippery stuff, you want the wide toe box, go with the new grip boot. If you like just this style of boot, but you need it a little bit more rugged for the outdoors, go with the Summit. If you just want something squishy and comfortable, you just throw around, put it in your backpack, hike with it, travel with it, the OG Boulder boot is hard to beat. I really, especially this canvas and leather version, it just makes it even more lightweight and breathable. But what are the downsides of this boot? Well, obviously, because it's a cemented boot and it's a very zero drop, they're not gonna be the most durable boots in the world. These are gonna last, you know, a portion as long as some of these like really heavy, like Pacific Northwest boots and like your regular mock toe boots like the whites, but they're a completely different thing. You know, these boots are made to be comfortable. Like that's what it prioritizes above anything else, including durability, longevity, resolability, even the looks to some degree, because to get that wide toe box, you need a wide last. And they do bottom out over time just because they're such a simple construction. But overall, they're one of the more attractive looking wide toe box boots. I don't feel out of place wearing them because it hides it really well with the mock toe stitch. They're super comfortable. They're still one of my favorite boots that I go to over and over again because of how comfortable they are, and they're fairly affordable. And how does this rank on our Moctober board? Well, I'd put it right here, and let me know what you guys think, where you'd put it, what you agree with, what you disagree with, which out of the three you would use and your experiences in them, because the comment section is a great resource for sizing individuals' personal experiences in each boot and which they like for which reasons. So thank you guys for everything you do and supporting everything that we do. Thanks again to Lems for sponsoring this video and sending us these boots and giving you a full breakdown. And I'll put links to the 3 different boots in the description along with their individual cut in half so you can watch plenty of us cutting apart Lems Boulder boot. Thank you guys. See ya.